Hello, you ghouls. Let's talk some Malazan because I've read House of Chains and so I've been doing this read for a year now, a year and change, and I've only done 4 books, and I think that's for the best. I know that Mike's book reviews, who did the read along, sped it up, and I was like, the moment he announced that we're speeding it up, I was like, no way. I'm not doing this again because let's be fair. These books are chunkers and very dense. This one took me 3 months, alright? I've been reading this book since December and took breaks to read other books in between, which was for the best, I believe. I first read this book back in 2006 or 2007, I guess. I'm not quite sure. And then I read the next book in the series, Midnight Tides, in 2010. Because back then this book broke me. However, as I was reading the series, I've read books 1 to 3, and I realized how much better those books were now that I knew where this was going. I mean, alright, Memories of Ice, it was a 5-star read for me the first time, it's a 5-star read the second time, and I'm just floored by some of the things Steven Erikson did there, and I wasn't aware of the first time around. Dead House Gates, 5 stars this time. It was 4 the first time because I thought that it was lagging in the middle part and there was a character arc. I was not quite sure where it was going. There were some tangents here and there, but on reread, those tangents made perfect sense and made the whole series so much better. So I was thinking maybe House of Chains is not as bad as I remember. It was not. It's far worse. And I went on Goodreads and I think I awarded 2 stars for this book. Malazan for me is a 5-star series. Not all books are perfect, but this book can break you, and it broke me this time around. I don't want to spoil things for you. If you are about to read this book or you have just read this book and you want to see if it gets better after that, or if you're fighting to read this book and you cannot read this book, soldier through, because it's one of the bad spots in Steven Erikson's magnum opus. But I believe the make or break thing about this book is one character. It boils down to one character, if you like Karsa Orlong or not, and I don't like Karsa Orlong. Reading the book a second time around, I can appreciate the character arc and the character concept of Karsa Orlong. However, I cannot stomach him. I think he's a bully, and there's so much more in this book that I couldn't stomach. You see, to me, Malazan excels at certain things. It excels at introducing us some alien civilizations when we go into big, bloody battles, when we have soldiers interacting with one another and bromance. So that means that the first 100 and the last 100 pages in this book are awesome. Then rest of it, it's a slog to get from point A to point B. To me, House of Chains suffers from middle book syndrome. And every time Malazan goes into middle book syndrome, it sucks. I'll be honest with you, I love the series. I believe every fantasy lover should read the series. It's undisputedly better than 99.9% of epic fantasy out there. But there are parts of it that don't work. And when you consider this entire series as one single book of 10,000 pages, you can forgive that. However, while reading this book, I felt that it was just moving pieces on a board from point A to point B, so we can go straight to the next 2 books, Midnight Tides, which actually is kicked off by a flashback in the epilogue of this book, and to Bone Hunters, which continues the events. I can appreciate some of the thought something that really annoys me about this book is not just that Karsa Orlong exists. Alright? This time around I was like, yes, Karsa Orlong exists. I have to read his story. I have to spend 250 pages in the beginning of this book about how he ended up, where he ended up. And when I started reading it, I saw the Table clans, their civilization, their gods, the trip of Karsa and his comrades to raid human villages, and I was hooked. I was reading this and I was like, yes, I want to go and read the sequel trilogy right now, the Witness trilogy, because I really want to see this world. I really love this place and its culture. And I could actually appreciate Karsa, because Steven Erikson does something amazing with Karsa. Karsa is a hero. He is the epitome of a hero. The hero of a very flawed and broken society. The hero of a society that relies on some ideas and some customs and some values that are invisible, and yet somehow Karsa embodies them and applies them. He's a romantic fool of sorts, only he's a chaotic, evil romantic fool. And much about his arc in this book is breaking from those chains that tie him to his tradition. And he sort of comes out of it as an anti-hero. And I can appreciate that. What I can't appreciate is how it fucks with the flow of this book, because we spent 1/4 of this book following one character, and at some point it's just not an exciting read. After the Templar get to the village, after they meet certain creatures like, Tlanimas, Forculasile, they stumble upon the deadliest creature in the world of Malazan Marines. And yeah, all hell breaks loose there. And we have we have Karsa stumble upon parts from previous books, and actually we have a part which is shown to us in reverse order from Deadhouse Gates to Midnight Tides, which is very fascinating. I won't spoil it for you. There's a lot of stuff done here that I can appreciate for what they're done. But thing is, we're 1/4 into the book, and this is where the story starts. You've read the other Malazan books. It takes time to get to the crux of it, climax. So there's an uncanny valley. You're in the uncanny valley where you're halfway through the book, but you're not. You're actually just getting to the inciting incident. And this throws the book off balance. And in some way, there are no satisfying arcs in this book. Okay, there's Karsa. There is another character who has an interesting arc. Or probably an interesting stage in his arc. But overall, I think that everything is very rushed. And it's there because it has to be there for the next books in the series. And there is a big battle coming, and it takes its time to get there. And when we get there, it's not as exciting, which is a cardinal sin for Malazan. There are elements of what makes Malazan amazing in this book, but they're just there. They never front and center. I never felt wowed, except for the first 100 pages, of course, and the Templar society and how it works. I never felt that it was a story of its own like the previous books were, because if you just look at the previous books, they are chapters in a bigger story. Despite going into tangents and tying into different plot arcs and etc., etc. We have some of the setup of of the big body of the series and how sides are moving their pieces around, the gods are playing their games, and how they conspire, how they draft mortals to help them, how the deck of dragons is being changed. Now the House of Chains is a reality, but it never rings true. It rings hollow and sort of like almost stuff around. and that's what annoyed me, because it's straight out of Memoirs of Ice, which is an awesome book. It's a huge book. It's 1,200 pages long, and it's got those big, amazing battles, those amazing events. It closes a chapter of the Malazan Empire. It introduces us to the real body of the book and what is the entire plot. And in House of Chains is just a pivot to the other two books in the series, because there's a character introduced and something is happening and it never ties into the rest of the facts. It's just that this character is there so that in the epilogue he can say, oh, this is my story, and it's Memories of Ice, which is a prequel to this one, to all the books actually. It's many years before the rest of the Malazan books. And of course, it pivots into what's happening in Bone Hunters, which is an awesome book, as far as I remember. Memories of Ice and Bone Hunters are my favorite in the series, and Dead House Gates definitely is where you read Malazan and you realize why people are wowed by the series, alright? House of Chains now, on reread, I was seeing, I remember how it ends, alright? And when I saw it happen, it was like, fuck off. Alright, the construction is great, but yeah, fuck off. I didn't like this book at all. However, when Karsa gets to, to the final part, yeah, it was kind of epic. I can appreciate Karsa. If I liked Karsa, I definitely add a star. Also, this book lacked the humor. Malazan books are funny. To me, Malazan books feel like a serious version of Discworld. Grimdark Discworld of sorts, because there's this absurd kind of humor, these wacky characters, this very malleable magic system, this metatextual way of approaching the world building. And I can really appreciate this. And here, there was a sequence towards the epilogue that was very funny. And it was almost like a slapstick comedy. And I read it and I was like, yeah, it was funny. I laughed at it, and then I said, why wasn't the rest of the book like that? Even when it goes to, to the comic relief character, there's Post here. And Post is not funny. Post is no Tehal, which could meet in Midnight Tides, and he's no Krupe. So yeah, I was not, I didn't enjoy this book. It actually, I say, the title is, it broke me, and it did. It broke me in many ways, and I should probably go into Midnight Tides so I can finish the rereads at some point in 2023, I guess, but I don't have the courage to do that right now, right? I'm drained. And I need some time to get to the good Malazan books again. So if you read this book, love to hear your comments. If you agree with me or not, if you think that this book is the best, feel free to tell me. Tell me I'm a fake fan or whatever, and I'm dumb and understand stuff. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching.